Peace and blessings to all of God's children. I pray this finds you well on this Truth and Right, Love and Light Thursday. Today is February 6th, 2025, and this particular video is the honor, the BirthStrong of Robert Nesta Marley. You know him as Bob Marley. In the language common, to us today, it's his birthday. So the RASTA says BirthStrong because the coming of a RASTA man is one of strength. And word sound power is very important to us in various instances. But what I want to do today is speak to you about Bob. I found a dissertation or speech that I was going to use while I was incarcerated. They had Black History Month festivities, and when they submitted, number one, they had a problem with me being that period because they considered through my appearance I was going to go around and create some type of disruption or nothing as a Rasta man. And I got to notate this, even in prison, God bless me to always have a platform that I man could teach and demonstrate what Rasta really is. Now, hold on. A lot of people think, I get this all the time, yeah, I met a Rasta man. But let me give you a correction on this, and let's go deeper here. For you to make that statement, and I know you don't mean no harm by it's no disrespect. Every Rasta man or Rasta woman that you meet is like a book in the Bible. It's a different book. Books in the Bible, except with, the books of wisdom, they have titles and they highlight certain individuals to tell their story relative to the book of life. We call it Bible. Rasta man called the Bible book of life. Now there's some Rastas, they don't believe in the Bible at all. So when somebody approaches me and say they met I know a Rasta man, this and that, you are unconsciously confining me to the expectations and the experiences you had with another Rasta man. And I'm not on here to say who's higher, it ain't about that. See, Rasta has an evolved level of consciousness. A lot of the things that we come with are facts. They're not delusions that we get from smoking weed. See, and that's another thing. Everybody that see you trodden Rasta, it's smoking weed. I mean, you totally have the whole thing out of whack. Yes, weed is used for the healing of the nations. All right? But that's not definitive of the entire Rasta movement. But as I said, today we honor Bob. And I'm going to use this dissertation that I had. And matter of fact, they decided not to let me in there. It was, they was afraid of the risk. Yeah, no, I was in a maximum security prison. So they told me, no, maybe next year. And I said, okay, I get it, See, rejection to a Rasta man is expected. See, this is what a lot of people don't get. I actually have people come up to me and say, hey, look, why don't you clean yourself up? Hold up, what do you mean? I'm not clean? Well, they're talking about, they don't understand this. They don't understand they don't get it. And I don't get upset or hostile about it, but I do know how I got to deal with them. See, some people you can love up close. Some people you just got to love them from a distance. And it's not that they're being mean or nothing. They just don't know no better, They confine people rather than starting people with a clean slate and bearing witness to find out who they are. And by the way, knowing a person's name don't mean you know their story. So until you get the information, and this was a problem when I was in prison I had with a lot of the older guys, because yes, I was a Rasta, but I was housed in what they call an old man's unit, over 40. And what I heard from most of the guys that was housed in the old man's unit, as they call it, was these youngsters. And I would pull them to the side. And I said, well, look, if you're really upset with the behavior of these youngsters, I invite you to come down to RASTA services. We're there on Mondays and Saturdays. And you can have a platform and get up. But we cannot sit around complaining about something if we're not doing anything about it. And see, that's what most people, they get in these prejudgmental situations. And then they don't allow a person to reveal or the situation to reveal itself to them because they've already put up blocks and hindrances. But anyway, Bob Marley was born February 6, 1945. And in 1945, when Bob was born, Britain still had Jamaica as one of his subjects. It was much later, late 50s, early 60s, when Jamaica got its independence and became what we know it to be then. But when Bob was born, they was under British rule. And what really endeared me to the story of Bob is how he came about. His mother, the Honorable Queen Mother Cedella Booker, she had him when she was 14 years old. But not only that, when she had him, when she came up pregnant by this 62-year-old white guy that was stationed in Jamaica under British rule and took advantage of this 14-year-old girl, Queen Mother Cedella Booker, Bob's mama, the community ostracized Bob and his mother. She had to move up in the hills on a little shack where she had Bob at. And there are accounts that when she had Bob, that there were wild dogs or jackals or some type of demonic beings trying to take Bob away from her. She had to fight him off, a 14-year-old girl. Well, my sister and I, it wasn't so dramatic as that, but we were born by a 17-year-old young lady who was deceived by a pastor, a reputable pastor in the community at that time. My biological father was a reputable pastor, but he was a man, and I'm not bombarding or going against it about pastorship. See, the office of pastorship, human beings have faults. They have foibles, okay? So Bob and I shared that. But the thing about Bob, in spite of all of what he had to endure and overcome in his life, he went on. No, he didn't. He wasn't the first person to create reggae music. Reggae music was around, and before that it was ska and it was jump steady styles of music. Bob took the music on an international level. And the messages in the song was about, as Christ described in scripture, the least of them, the sufferers, the people on the bottom of the barrel. No, he wasn't giving no shout outs to billionaires and all this type of thing here. See, I'm here to not only talk about Bob's BirthStrong or birthday, I'm here to talk about the man's character. See, the media, they focus on the speaking of patois, like, I don't know what he talking about, rejection. Oh, he always smoking weed, rejection. You can't get to the man's heart. And let me expose something else to you too. The whole dread and the continence I got here is, if you stop right there, then, matter of fact, this is a defense mechanism. You go to telling me about cleaning myself, and I said, well, I know right then and there. I'm not gonna cuss you out. I'm not gonna be. I'm gonna say, okay, I know where you're at. I mean, that's your belief, and I'm gonna respect that by easing out of the situation and going on about my business. Okay. So Bob overcome a lot of things. Rasta see Bob as a prophet. And I'm here to bear witness that a lot of his music has gotten me through some very difficult, dark times, especially redemption songs. I don't know how familiar you are with it. But all of the music had a powerful message. And this is why RASTA acknowledged Bob as a prophet. No, not like the prophets in the Bible, not Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. No. We're talking about one who was used by the Almighty through music to speak of the least of us, as we were ordered by Christ in this book of life, Holy Scripture. He said, what you do for the least of them, you do for me. Bob brought the social situation in Jamaica to the forefront and said, hey, look, we got to stop this right here. We got to sit down and we have to wake up and live. There was no one in his songs. Now, the lyrics in Bob's songs, people are drawn from the music, had impact on rock music, and sadly, I hate to say it, reggae music, when Bob was around, wasn't really that popular in America. And he had a worldwide stage. He was traveling all around the world. But America, especially the American people, was very slow to embrace it. I was one of them. Bob was brought into RASTA by his wife, Rita. I had a similar experience. I met a RASTA woman, and she was telling me about it, and at the time, I was so much a part of this madness over here, this Babylon business. I'm telling her, why do I have to grow dreadlocks and look like that just to smoke weed? You got to understand, this was in the 70s. And what she was talking about, well, that was a parallel with Bob. I found that his wife, Rita, introduced him to a Rasta elder named Mortimer Planter. Mortimer Planter was on the welcoming committee when Haile Selassie came to Jamaica. He led the welcoming party. He was considered by reputation and in that culture as a leader. And the history of Rasta is spurned out of the Maroons. The Maroons, one of the main characters was Queen Nanny. They fought. When the British soldiers came to fight the Rasta man up in the hills of Jamaica, when the Rasta man could come down to fight, the dreadlocks and the continents, them boys took off. They said, how can we fight men? They got snakes for hair. This is also where this abomination comes with Medusa. They said, the Greeks said, oh, Medusa had serpents for hair. No, she had dreads, man. She had sacred locks. Let me correct this. It's commonly understood as dreadlocks. They are actually sacred locks. This is our precept. The locks of our head is our covenant with God. So when people come talking about that, now, all this right, like I said, you cannot define one Rasta by all Rastas. Because as an example here with Bob Marley, he wasn't accepted when he came out. Bob made more money since his death than he did when he was alive. And I'm gonna tell you something else about Bob's character. Bob gave all his money away. He was helping folks. People had it, said, Bob, what'd you do that? I got to help the people. I got to help the sufferers. I mean, how can you condemn a man? I mean, see, we got this thing, and one of my mentors taught me this. He said, look, man, when civilized, conscious people come together, they agree to disagree. We're not going to agree on everything. But let me give you this analogy. If you bless me 99 times and tell me no one time, does that give me the authority to condemn you, cuss you out, or call you all kind of names? Well, it's a common behavior. How soon people forget that the things that's done from them by the hand of the Almighty now, they're soon to forget. And they become totally entranced. And I'm talking about me too. Don't think I'm excluding myself. What I'm talking about today, it came through a process where I had to realize, should I reject somebody for making a mistake or a must-take? and forget the 99 blessings this person is giving me? So RASTA is a concept of conscious people elevating themselves. That's what RASTA is. Now, whatever booger bear fears you have about it, get rid of that mess. You know, what Rastas have always demonstrated, whether it be, and I'll tell you something else too, just like in the religions, you got Baptist, Methodist, Church of Christ, Pentecostal. Okay, well, Rasta has different groups. You have the Order of Melchizedek, the Bobo Ashanti. You got the Nyabingi. That's what Bob was. He was a member of the Nyabingi order. That's a mystical order. And you have the 12 tribes. Well, at the end of Bob's life, when he, got cancer and everything, he switched from Nyabingi to 12 tribes. And his reasons for it, I'm not equipped to get into it. But for one thing, the chemotherapy, when he got his locks came out. So it put him in like a tailspin. And let's remember something. In spite of him being seen as a prophet and all that, Bob was a man. But he was a conscious man. And he was willing to get out front and do the work where other people wanted to stand back. See, it's always a group of people waiting there right at the finish line when you finish. But they don't want to run the race with you. And one of the things about music has a resonance to us. Some people pat their feet, some people sing along, some people get up and dance in the aisles. Most of the places Bob went, the message was in the music, and the music was in the message, if you get where I'm coming from. So Bob made an announcement. Yeah, you got to get past the way I look and look at my heart. See, that's what Rasta is. If you're talking about my externals, all this mess here going away. You can't never get to my heart because you have already excluded me. I mean, to this day, and I've been on this thing here around 50 years now, Rasta, tried Rasta, and still ain't finished. Because as long as I got breath in my lungs, I'm still going to try that. But I'm amazed at people that come up talking to me. They already got me sized up and they going on. When I open my mouth and start speaking, they're shocked. Oh, he speaks. Oh, we thought you. See, you can't judge a book by the cover. As God told the prophet Samuel, when he was looking for that king, when he was looking for the day, he went to David's father, Jesse's house. Jesse brought out all of his brothers who looked the role. God said, no, it ain't nothing. It's got to be somebody else. So finally Samuel said, have you got somebody? He said, yeah, I got the youngest. He out there in the field with the sheep out there somewhere. And when he came in, God spoke to Samuel the prophet and said, that's him right there. A little runt. He said, you look at the outer man. I look at the heart. David was a man of God's own heart. David did his mess. Here again, we get positions confused with the characteristics of human beings. It's required of us here to be in this physical realm. We have to have a human body. This body is explained in scripture as a temple. And a lot of us is out here praying and shouting, talking about what God ain't doing for us. Well, do you expect God to come into a profane temple? I spoke in other videos about, that was one of the hardest things about me sitting down, going inside of myself while I was in prison. I was living so foul. No, I didn't articulate it then. I didn't articulate it too much later when I looked at it. But you can't expect the presence of God to move within you if you haven't prepared a place for them. There's a very famous painting. Some of you probably seen it. Christ is standing at a door. And in this painting, if you really look closely, you'll see that this door has no way for Christ to enter from the outside. You have to open the door and let Christ in. And that's a precept that I came to terms with as far as us going to and fro in the earth. You can't make nobody do nothing. Everybody has their own belief systems. You have a divine right to believe whatever you want to believe. Christ mentioned it in scripture several times during healing. He said, your belief, your faith has made thee whole. There were cities Christ didn't even go into. He said because the unbelief was too high. So we need to focus on what it is we believe with all our heart, all our spirit, and all our being. And what puts that fire in our belly to get up and move about. Again, I salute Bob as a prophet, his music. I mean, lyrics like in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty, rat race, RASTA don't work for no CIA, all them type of business. See, RASTA is not interested in politics. RASTA is sole purpose is for individuals to develop within themselves who they are and whose they are with the kingly character. We speak of Haile Selassie, who came, and let me tell you something about this. I've been into a lot of debates, heated debates, with people saying, well, Haile Selassie, his kingly character made him a man of God. But Haile Selassie, his coronation in 1930, and there's National Geographic magazines from that time showing it devoted the whole magazine to his coronation. His coronation was in the Ethiopian Christian church. I searched it, you research it. He went in the temple, him and his empress. They observed all the rituals of purification before they came into it. And see, this is why now the Ethiopian Bible and the Ethiopians were worshiping long before that incident with Stephen, the eunuch, and all. But it was the old time religion. They don't want us practicing the old time religion, because the old time religion is not a suppressive religion. It is a religion where we come into a personal relationship with our Creator. I pray on this BirthStrong of Bob Marley, something comes out of this that will better equip you to be a better person and escape that prison colony of your mind that's indebted to you. And let me say this as I exit. Our parents love us, care for us, take care of us when we don't know better. But our parents also pass on certain fears to us that we have in this inside darkness. Some of us got traumas and all types of things. And I'm not speaking against parents. Parenting is a very difficult job. There's no rule book, because every individual that comes in this earth has different attributes and different requirements necessary to grow them. But by the grace of the Almighty, we come through and we get to a point where we can stand on our own 2 feet. We get out of that slippery, miry clay, so to speak, and we stand on a strong foundation. And that's what I promote here, is love yourself, honor yourself, respect yourself. God lives in you as you for you. You must honor that presence. And I pray things that have befallen you in the past will be oh so clear. That's why Bob said there's a natural mystic moving through the hills. Peace and blessings.